All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Last night, we saw a top 10 matchup in Orlando between LSU and Florida State, as both of these teams have what it takes to make the college football playoff this season. Obviously, there had to be a winner and loser from last night's contest, but most of us didn't expect to come in such dominating fashion. Now, after a back and forth first half, LSU took a 17-14 advantage into the locker room at the half. But little did we expect the barrage in the second half as Florida State at one point reeled off 31 consecutive points. And the folks who made the trek from Baton Rouge to Orlando had to have gotten tired of hearing that Seminole War chant last night at the Citrus Bowl, as it sounded more like Doak Campbell Stadium South, as the folks from Tallahassee were simply in their glory last night. Now, in that second half, Florida State won the battle in the trenches as their non existent running game in the first half showed up with a vengeance in the second half. We also saw this defensive line for Florida State take over in the second half as they were led by Jared Verse as they consistently put pressure on LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels. Now, LSU began this season ranked fifth, while the Noles were eighth. And when I did my preseason poll, I had Florida State at number five and LSU at number six. Now, obviously, after this loss, there are going to be some people that want to say that LSU was ranked too high to begin this college football season. But in actuality, it was more of Florida State not being ranked high enough, as this team is for real. I also came into the season, and I'm going to stick by it. I picked Florida State not only to win the ACC, but I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be one of the four teams that makes the playoff. Now, some people are going to say SEC hype versus an underrated ACC. These two conferences met three times in three different matchups, rather, over the weekend. Of course, we saw Tennessee blow out Virginia in Nashville. Then on Saturday night, North Carolina got the best of South Carolina and Charlotte. And then, of course, this marquee matchup. The SEC is still the top dog. The SEC, excuse me, is still the real deal. And obviously, there's going to be more matchups throughout this season between the SEC and ACC. You think about it, Louisville, Kentucky, Clemson, South Carolina, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, just to name a few. But nonetheless, getting back to this game, LSU, in my opinion, still deserves to be a top 10 team. And they were not overhyped. And this team is still the real deal. They returned a ton of talent from a team last year that won 10 games. This was a team that beat Alabama in order to win the SEC West. They got to the SEC championship game. They got run over by Georgia, but a lot of people could say that. And then on this same field at the Citrus Bowl, aka Camping World Stadium, just this past January, LSU destroyed Purdue 63-7. But you look at the Noles, they're loaded on both sides of the football. You got Jordan Travis at quarterback, the Michigan State transferred wide receiver Keon Coleman, as well as Johnny Wilson. And then you have a stout defense led by Jared Verse and Tatum Bethune. This team is coming. And for me, I feel that the Seminoles can play with anyone in the nation. And even though that, I have not been a fan of the expanded college football playoff, which is going to take place next season, this would be a good year to see the 12 teams because I really feel that there's about 10 teams right now that have a legit shot to win it all. Now, for Florida State, if they can beat Clemson later this month, this team is off to the races because I think the Seminoles are ready to go. And this is a credit to Mike Norvell, and I also think it's a credit to the patience that the administration in Tallahassee has had with them because unfortunately, some people wanted Norvell to turn this thing around right away. Obviously, it didn't work like that. Slow start in 2020, a slow start in 2021, but you saw this Florida State team improve as 2021 got better, and they were a much better team in the second half of that season as compared to the first. That carried over to last year when the Seminoles had that breakout, and of course, it started with them going to New Orleans and beating LSU last year. And now I think not only are they prepared, they obviously were prepared to beat LSU last night, but I think they're also prepared to live up to the preseason hype because regardless of where you are, if you're ranked in that top 10 to begin a season, expectations are very high for your program. And I think the Seminoles have what it takes to live up to those expectations. They're for real. This fan base has wanted this for a long time, since the days of Jimbo Fisher, to get back to this point. And I think Mike Norvell is definitely the guy to lead them there. LSU is going to bounce back from this. This was not a good look for them last night. It started off the contest did like it was going to be a back and forth affair. We saw Florida State get that touchdown midway through the first. LSU came right back and responded. And then, of course, it was big for LSU to get that field goal just before the end of the first half. It looked like it was going to be a throwaway. They ran it on third down, got picked up a big chunk of yardage. Next thing you know, they were in Florida State territory. They were able to build off of that and get deeper into Noles territory in order to get the field goal. But nonetheless, LSU obviously has to get better on third down. Gotta get better running the football as well. They were just 3 of 10 on third down last night, 0 of 3 on fourth down, and Jayden Daniels, as good as he is, was their leading rusher. So that definitely has to change. And for LSU, they're gonna host Grambling on Saturday. And then after that, it's right into the heart of their SEC schedule. They're at Mississippi State, then they host Arkansas, and then they're at Missouri, and then they're home for Auburn. That's not going to be an easy stretch right there for LSU. I said this coming into this season that it was going to be a little bit tougher for LSU this time around as compared to last year due to the fact that they got everybody on their home turf last year. That's going to change. And obviously, this was still a neutral site game, if you want to call it that, but the game was in Orlando, not that far from Tallahassee. But then LSU had that in their favor last year when they hosted the Seminoles in New Orleans. But nonetheless, LSU still has a darn good football team, and they're going to have their say in who wins the SEC. Even still could be them. But nonetheless, this was a dominating performance by a good Florida State team. And I think they're going to build off of this. I don't think they're going to get too high off of it. They're obviously excited about getting the dub, but nonetheless, they know that bigger things are on the horizon. And like I said, I'm going to stick to what I said last month. Florida State is the team to beat in the ACC, and I also think when it's all said and done, they are going to have a seat this year in the college football playoff. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.